All right, folks, a fun video for you guys today. We're going to see, is this Canucks team that has just been assembled after the Kraken expansion draft, after a crazy free agency period, is this team better than the team from 2 years ago that went to the bubble, took out the Wild, crushed the reigning champion St. Louis Blues, and then took Vegas to 7 games before ultimately being snuffed out in the second round? Before I make my case, give me yours down in the comments below. Let me know if you think this team is better, worse, or about the same as that one from 2 years ago. In this video, we're going to go sort of line by line, grouping by grouping, comparing who's going to be out there on the ice now compared to who it was 2 years ago. Let's get into it. Let's start with the forwards, and let's start with the top line. The top line is the same. Lotto line: Miller, Pettersson, Besser. At least these are our projected lines. This is sort of who we're thinking. Again, things might change here, but overall the sentiment will be pretty much the same because we know who the personnel is going to be for the most part. Slight upgrade, I think. Now, you might say, look, they're the same players, but we're comparing today's Miller, Pettersson, and Besser to 2 years ago Miller, Pettersson, and Besser. Pettersson probably about the same, Miller probably about the same, but I think Besser's going to be better than he was 2 years ago, and this is just coming down to injuries being healed. Brock Besser looked a lot better this last season than he did a couple of years ago. I think that will maintain. I think his shot is back to his elite rookie season level, and I think a slight upgrade in the top line for the Vancouver Canucks compared to 2 years ago. But the second line is where we actually get some real changes. Horvat remains the center, but on the wings, we now have Höglander and Garland instead of Pearson and Toffoli. Let's start with the left-hand side and swapping Tanner Pearson with Niels Höglander. I think this is an upgrade, and it's mainly because you see Pearson got moved down the lineup. Höglander has better battle ability, in my opinion. He's way more exciting to watch. I'm not going to say it's a huge upgrade, but if Höglander can build off of the season he had last year, he can really be a true high-end second-line winger in this league, and I think he is an upgrade over Tanner Pearson. Now, the right-hand side, Garland and Toffoli. This one's tough because Tyler Toffoli doesn't have a ton of dynamics to his game, right? He's a really good goal scorer, but he's not like a super fast skater. He's not, his battle level isn't crazy high, but he has just that crazy raw goal scoring ability. He scored 28 goals this year in like 52 games. However, reasons that you might prefer Connor Garland: he's 4 years younger. He's slightly smaller, but that's fine. Their point totals aren't that dissimilar. Connor Garland had 39 points in 49 games this year. I personally like Connor Garland more. I like his play style more. However, I think you'd be safe to say that you'd rather have Toffoli, at least if we're looking at one season in a vacuum. I think we'll call it a wash more so. So I'd say the second line, probably a slight upgrade with the Höglander over Tanner Pearson. So top two lines, we're saying slightly better potentially than they were 2 years ago. However, of course, things may change. Now, the third line is where this forward group really comes together. This is the big upgrade. This is where the Canucks are actually looking like a true high-end top nine group. Let's look at this. Antoine Roussel, Adam Gaudette, Brandon Sutter were some of the line, or were one of the third pairing or the third lines in the bubble. We've replaced that now with Tanner Pearson moving down from the second line from 2 years ago, Jason Dickinson and Vasily Podkolzin. Let's go one at a time. Pearson instead of Roussel, huge upgrade. That is a massive upgrade. Anton Roussel getting shipped off in that Oliver Ekman-Larsson trade, and this is a big upgrade on the third line. Tanner Pearson just has way more upside. He's not going to take bad penalties. Huge upgrade. On the right-hand side, Brandon Sutter, who basically was just out there because he had to play somewhere, getting replaced by Vasily Podkolzin. Way more upside here. We don't know defensively. It might be worse having someone like Podkolzin, a young rookie, instead of a guy like Brandon Sutter, who is good on the PK and sort of a good shutdown guy. But again, just way more upside here in having Vasily Podkolzin on that third line. So that's a big upgrade in my book. And at center, Adam Gaudette getting replaced with Jason Dickinson. Maybe a little bit less flashy upside, but Adam Gaudette did not have any real defensive side to his game. And that's why he couldn't stick with the Canucks. That's why he got traded. Because Adam Gaudette is such a second line or bust type of player, where if you have to have him sort of in a defensive role, it's just not really going to cut it. Jason Dickinson, less offensive upside, however, an excellent, excellent, excellent defensive forward, shutdown guy, will crush it on the penalty kill. I think this is a huge upgrade at 3C. Fourth line, we go from Mott, Beagle, and Virtanen to Mott, Sutter, and then Highmore, McEwen. Let's go one at a time here. Tyler Mott, love Tyler Mott, same. In the middle, Jay Beagle is gone. Brandon Sutter on a cheaper deal to replace him, basically. Kind of a wash in my book. And we said this on Canucks After Dark a few times. They're kind of they fill the same role. I think Sutter might be a little bit better. But at the end of the day, look, it's your fourth line. It doesn't matter all that much. So again, we'll call that a wash. And then Jake Virtanen, getting replaced with a guy like Matt Highmore or Zach McEwen. Probably a slight downgrade if we're just talking on the hockey side. But again, Virtanen was so up and down that you never knew what you were getting on a night-to-night basis. So again, probably a slight downgrade. However, I'm not going to complain too much. So overall, let's summarize sort of our forward group here. Lines 1, 2, and 4 are pretty similar in caliber to their bubble counterparts, right? Major upgrades to the third line, though, have this forward group looking like a real upper-class forward unit in the NHL. However, because of this, the sacrifices had to come somewhere, so let's talk about the defense. You're going to notice on the side here, these lines aren't really in an order. I took the pairings from one of the games against Vegas, basically. And what I did is I've aligned everything so that some players are the same. So the Hughes group, let's call it just the Hughes pairing, goes from Hughes-Tanev to Hughes-Hamonic. Quinn Hughes was worse last year than he was in 2020. I don't think that's much of a disputable thing. But he's still the same person. So if he comes back and shows more of his, maybe it was a sophomore slump, maybe he comes back, looks more like 2019-2020 Quinn Hughes, we'll call that a wash, right? But Chris Tanev, instead of Chris Tanev, who by everything we've heard out of Calgary, Chris Tanev was outstanding last year. One of the best defensive defensemen in the NHL last year. However, we're comparing it to 2019-20 Tanev, who was pretty good. I think going from Tanev to Hamonic is a downgrade. Maybe not a huge downgrade, but probably still a decent size downgrade. And by the way, Tanev didn't miss a single game last year, which is crazy. But I'm going to say the Hughes pairing, probably slightly worse than it was 2 years ago. Second pairing, the Tyler Myers pairing. He goes from playing with Oscar Fantenberg, who I really liked. I thought Fantenberg was pretty good. He was always competing with Ulevi for a spot, and he was always better than Ulevi was. Obviously, he's not in the picture anymore. So he's been replaced with Tyler Myers with, we're assuming, Oliver Ekman-Larsson. And again, we don't know that these lines are going to be, or these pairings are going to be the way they are until training camp happens, but this is just sort of the way we're guessing. This is an upgrade, right? If OEL can regain any of his prime, any of his game from his younger self, this should be an easy upgrade over Fantenberg was. So I'd say, if we look at the top two, or those first two pairings, probably a slight downgrade with Hamonic over Tanev, probably a slight upgrade, if not a big upgrade, with Ekman-Larsson over Fantenberg. Again, cap notwithstanding. So I'd say that's fine so far. The third pairing, or our third pairing here, we go from Edler Stetcher, who I know wasn't the third pairing in 2019-2020, but these are the guys who aren't around anymore. Edler Stetcher, who played 20-plus minutes a night in the bubble with Jack Rathbone and Tucker Poolman. Let's start on the right here. Tucker Poolman instead of Troy Stetcher. It's a lot less fun, and I think it's probably a bit worse. Tucker Poolman has basically no offensive upside to his game, which is fine if you're playing on the third pair. However, we're comparing that to a guy like Troy Stetcher, who I really liked, and I'd say probably a bit of a downgrade here. And Jack Rathbone compared to Alex Edler. This one's tough because Edler was probably one of the best defensemen in Canucks history. Again, not a high bar to clear. But Rathbone has the potential to become a very, very, very good offensive playmaking defenseman. Last year, he showed some sparks of that. Again, it was only a handful of games. This is a hard one to judge. It's probably too early to say if he'll be better than Edler this year, probably safe to say it'll be a downgrade, at least for this season. However, over the next couple of years, we really could see Jack Rathbone become a very, very good defenseman. With the extras, Yuolevi Ben compared to Yuolevi Shen, we'll call it the same. Really, the difference is Jordy Ben compared to Luke Shen. We'll call that a wash. Again, it's not going to matter enough to be a real big impact on the team. So overall, the defensive group is kind of scary. We don't know what version of Oliver Ekman-Larsson we're going to get. The loss of Alex Edler is quite substantial, and Jack Rathbone's really going to have to come in and fill that gap, and guys like Quinn Hughes are going to step up. Oliver Ekman-Larsson's going to have to step up. I wouldn't write this group off right away. However, I think the goalies might have their work cut out for them. And let's talk about the goaltenders. In the bubble, Jacob Markstrom, Thatcher Demko. Jacob Markstrom was one of the best goalies in the NHL that year. In 2019-2020, Jacob Markstrom was elite. Then he gets hurt, can't play in the Vegas series. Thatcher Demko comes in and has a knockout performance of a lifetime. With Demko gone, Thatcher Demko is now the starter. So we're going to compare Jacob Markstrom 2019-2020 to 2021 upcoming Thatcher Demko. Markstrom had troubles last year, but we're not really comparing to that. So we're saying, is this team better than the team from 2 years ago? Demko instead of Markstrom, I'd say that's probably about a wash. Demko was also one of the better goaltenders in the NHL this year, and working with Ian Clark, he seems to only be getting better. So we'll call starting goaltender probably about a wash, because Demko is an excellent goaltender. Backup goalie is a little more interesting. In the current day, 36-year-old Yaroslav Halak has to basically fill the role that Thatcher Demko did 2 years ago. 2 years ago, Demko was fine in the regular season. He played 20-something games. He had a 906 save percentage, 905 save percentage, I think it was, which is basically what Halak was last year. Halak was a 906. So if Halak is like he was last year, we're basically getting a very similar backup goalie. However, a veteran presence in Yaroslav Halak, which I think will benefit the team quite a bit. I'd say in general, goaltenders going to be pretty similar in caliber to the tandem from 2 years ago. So what does this all mean? Let's summarize it. Like I said, forwards, probably a big upgrade here. And that's mainly just from the third line. Defense, probably a bit of a downgrade, and that's again just because of the unknowns of Oliver Ekman-Larsson coming into a new environment. Jack Rathbone maybe having some real ice time. Tucker Poolman coming in, who we didn't see a ton of. Basically a shutdown guy in Winnipeg. So defense is a little bit scary, and I'm going to say probably going to be a little bit worse than that 2020 season. And in goal, we're thinking they're going to be about the same. In general, I think this team is a little bit better than they were 2 years ago. I think the big upgrades to the third line defensively make up a little bit for the defensive side, and especially if the goaltenders can play to their best and hopefully bail out that defensive group if need be. I will say this team is, let's say, 10% better than that team that made it to the bubble in 2020. Now, that doesn't mean the Canucks are a guaranteed playoff team. It doesn't mean that the Canucks are going to win the Stanley Cup this year. It means I think that they're going to have a real shot to compete for the playoffs. With teams like Edmonton making iffy moves, the Kraken having sort of an odd expansion draft, I think the door is open. I think the Canucks really could push for a playoff spot. Again, we'll have more videos talking about my predictions for the season later on. I think the team's slightly better than they were 2 years ago. Again, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Leave a like on the video if you haven't already. Hit the subscribe button if you're not already. And I will talk to you in the next one.